Getting married for us was just the most exciting time, an exciting experience, because most of our engagement we spent apart from each other. You know, different parts of the country, sometimes different countries in the world. I was in Australia, Leslie was in the United States, and I was in Washington State, she was in Indiana or in Florida. So when we got married, part of getting married was actually being together for a long period of time. And so for the first year was an unbelievable experience. We felt like we were on a honeymoon that entire year. But after that year, things began to unravel for us. We were working really hard at our jobs. Leslie was coaching at Florida State, working 18 hours a day. I was coaching at a high school and teaching. So we felt like we were just passing each other in the night. There was no intentionality on working on our marriage. We just were on cruise control. And once that honeymoon kind of wore off, we began to struggle a little bit.
Yeah, I think it took us a while to really realize that we were struggling, because we were having a great time. Socially speaking, like, we had great friends. We were doing a lot of things with the Florida State basketball team where I was coaching. Dave got to hang out with the coaching staff where he was at the high school and go on road trips and do a lot of fun things. So it was a fantastic time. Like, we were having a great time. But with our relationship, that was just kind of crumbling, and we didn't really identify that for a while. So at this point, I started to, the honeymoon was wearing off, and I started to struggle with feelings of loneliness and wondering why I was lonely when I was in marriage. It didn't seem to make sense to me. I felt frustrated when I would talk with Dave, because it seemed like his response was saying that he didn't, that it wasn't valid that I felt that way. And so I just kept kind of cycling around to, I felt this way, and yet on the outside I had a dream job, I had a dream husband, and it didn't seem to jive. And so at one point, a friend of mine encouraged me to go to a Christian counselor, and that was really important, because I started to understand what I was experiencing with the anger. And really, during that time when I was talking with the counselor was when one of my lowest points happened, or one of our lowest points. It was one night where I was in bed and we were talking about something, and Dave said something, and I remember thinking, he doesn't understand. And I just turned over and I hit this lamp. We had a lamp that didn't have a shade on it, and I just turned over and I hit it with my hand, and I picked up I don't remember this part, but Dave says I picked up a stapler and threw it across the room, not trying to hit him, but just in anger. And for me, that was just kind of, that happened several times where there were bouts of anger where I just didn't understand, because I was so frustrated. And so that was a really hard time, dealing with things and not understanding why.
Yeah, and I wasn't doing much intentionally to walk with her through that. I was kind of on cruise control. I didn't really know how to lead us through that, so I kind of looked at it as her problem that she was dealing with, and that I didn't have anything to do with it. And so it was a bit of a shock when those things started to happen to us, and I actually asked myself, unbeknownst to her, what did I get myself into? Was I supposed to get into this marriage and have this happen to my marriage? I began to take ownership of that. And so I guess that's when the counselor invited us both to come in to talk to her about what had just happened. So we go to the counselor, and again, I'm going as purely, in my mind, as purely moral support for her. I'm in the thinking that this is these are her issues and her problems, that I'm just there to listen and be of support. But as soon as I sat down and we were in the room with the counselor, her first line of questioning was directed towards me. And I quickly came to the realization that I had a lot more to do with this situation even more so than she was with the issues that she was dealing with. And so the thing that really jumped out at me through the counseling session was that this counselor was telling me that Leslie has been sent by God to complement me and to sharpen me in areas that I'm not very sharp in. She has strengths where I'm weak. I have strengths where she is weak. And to always have that perspective in our marriage. So when she comes to me with something that I need to change in my life, I don't get defensive or take offense. I listen to her when she says those things so that I can glean from God in what He's trying to teach me.
Right. And the one thing that the counselor would continually say was, you guys need to teach each other. Not only teach each other, but be willing to be taught. And so, as a person who loves sports, I caught that on right away. That's what a coach does. And you need to be coachable in life with what God is teaching you. And so I think that through that, we've started to act more like we are on the same team. God put us on a team, but we weren't acting like it. And so we've learned to stay true to what God is showing us by just being unified in so many things, and seeing that that unselfishness doesn't come naturally. It's constantly, every single day, it's a battle to say, okay, I want something a certain way. I want him to act this way. I want Dave to just be all about me. And maybe he's tired when he comes home from work, but I was just with the kids all day. Why is he tired? And so starting to see life from another person's perspective and be willing to sacrifice and be unified in that it's a daily struggle for sure.
Yeah, and over the years, I think we've learned that our marriage is something that we need to work on every single day, like you were talking about. I mean, it's not something that you can get on cruise control like I was early on. We need to make it a priority in our life, just like we need to make a priority of our relationship with Christ and reading the Bible and praying and being in relation with Him every single day. We need to work on our marriage the same way, because if we don't, then that's when the selfishness and our nature gets in there and begins to create some gaps that are hard to overcome.
Yeah, I was just thinking how recently we just went out to dinner, and it had been 3 months since we had gone out to eat together, had any significant time alone. And so it's for us, that's a long time, and it just is like, it doesn't get easier to make time for each other. It doesn't get easier to sit down and say, well, how are we doing? How am I doing as a wife? For you, what do you need? Ask each other those questions, because days just keep rolling. You got work, you got kids, you got everything. And so to actually take that time and do it doesn't take very long, but it's so important. And I think that helps us. Every time we have time together, I think we think, why don't we do this more? We need to do this more.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it wasn't like after the counseling session that we just got it. Walked out and we're like, okay, let's do Marriage Right now. For us, it was definitely a slow process, just constant little turning of, we had changed our mindset in a certain regard, but it took a long time for the actions to follow. For me, it was just telling Dave when I was experiencing something or when I was frustrated with him, and having that be okay. Not allowing that to spiral into a depression, because we started keeping shorter accounts with each other. It was definitely years where I felt like we were unstable on a certain level emotionally. I was dealing with frustration and anger. We'd go away for a while and come back, and a lot of my anger, I felt like it was directed toward Dave, but I was trying to hold it back. So, like I said, it was years, definitely.
Yeah, I think it was more times I began to notice where I could engage in the process of walking with Leslie through these situations, whether it was from my side or your side. Whereas before I didn't really see where I could step in. And I think the closer over the years, the closer I've gotten to the Lord, the more I see that when we have conflict in our marriage, and I see the thread of what He's done for me, and the grace that He's given us to get through those tough times early on, to where my heart is tender towards that. It's not easy at all, and a lot of times I screw that up, but I'm constantly reminded of those early times, and it kind of snaps me back into where I need to be in order to lead as the spiritual leader through those situations.
So for us, the busyness aspect of things, for a long time we said we're just so busy. In fact, we didn't even think about what we were doing a lot of times. We were just enjoying what we were doing because it was so fun. We had a lot of, we had good friends. We had events to go to. I mean, with Florida State, there was always some type of fundraiser or tournament or some kind of benefit from being part of the team, and it was a great time. We enjoyed ourselves a lot, but we didn't realize, I don't think, the impact of the busyness and how it didn't matter if we had no kids or now we have 4 kids, or even the in-between times, 1 or 2 or 3 kids. It doesn't matter. There's always been this sense of there's so much going on. There's so much that's so good to do. But I think the thing that we've started to pull out is we've got to be clear about our purpose. And the only way that we can do that is to stay right with God in our relationships personally and then in our marriage. And that's helped us to kind of sift through the busyness and realize that God has a higher purpose for us than just doing things all day long, just being frantic and getting caught up in that. But there's the relationally, God has made us relational beings. And if we brush that aside too long, we'll really suffer. So making that a priority is really important.
Yeah, I think that's what you're saying is that we need to make our priorities clear. That our marriage is a priority, our relationships are a priority, not our job, not the recreational things that we do, not our kids all the time. We got to make priorities to make time for each other, make time for God, and really allow God to work through those times. Because if we don't make time for those things, we get isolated from each other. That's when we get picked off, and that's when bad things start to happen. And so that's taken us years and years to figure that out, and we're still working through that. But we feel like the more times that we make those priorities happen during the week is when we really see God move in amazing ways through our family.